I've been playing Kirby games for a long time. Well over 20 years of my life, in fact. If we count those as days, that's a lot more days than my simple year-end goal of 2,500 subscribers, which you can help me achieve by liking and commenting on the video and ringing that notification bell after subscribing. Where were we? Right. I can't quite say the same for something like Fire Emblem, but what I can say is that there's been a solid 15 years, give or take, of Fire Embleming up my sleeve. What makes a Fire Emblem game good and a Kirby game good aren't actually all that far off from each other, but that's for another video. Today, I want to get a bit more specific and talk about recommending Kirby to a total newcomer. Maybe they enjoy other platformers, maybe they don't really play platformers, maybe they mostly play Fire Emblem? The game that I'd suggest, it's immediately obvious. Like, I get it. Just under a year ago, I spent almost 50 minutes hyping up a video to basically say nothing comes close to being as good as Superstar Ultra, but a very good part of why I think that comes down to far more than just the game's quality. The quality of the game is the big reason for that. It's off the charts. It's so high it goes through the roof. I left a hole in my ceiling. I probably have to pay for that. A big part of why I love Superstar Ultra so much is because it is the perfect game to get a curious newcomer into the series with. Now, okay, so you boot up the game and you go through Spring Breeze. Great. What did you like about Spring Breeze? Did you like the level design? Because good news, this is a remake of Kirby's Dream Land, which shares many similarities to the Dark Matter trilogy, Kirby's Adventure, and Nightmare in Dreamland, and even the modern games, as it were. But what about the level design did you really like? Was it the simple, relaxing funness of it? Perfect, you'll love the Dark Matter trilogy. The way that moving around Kirby feels, combined with the simplicity of the copy abilities, I gotta recommend Kirby's Adventure in that case. And you could even go with Nightmare in Dreamland, Amazing Mirror, and Squeak Squad, although those tend to control a little bit looser, but if you don't mind that, then absolutely, those games are filled to the brim with stuff for you to do. Oh, that sounds cool and all, but you want some more complexity with the copy abilities? Really, in that case, I could just recommend you any of the modern games. I'd start with Return to Dreamland since that's the first one, but truth be told, you can go with any of them. They're all great first picks. Oh, or if you like the visual style and you want to... Sorry, I almost got lost there for a second. Let's get back on track here. This is all just based on Spring Breeze, right? It's a game mode that you can clear in a solid 10 minutes on your first go. There's still Dynablade, Great Cave, Revenge of the King, and so many more modes to tackle that. By the end, you'll find what you like, do some research, or have a friend recommend you some stuff based on what you like, and find which games appeal to you the most. The only potential downside is that you might be starting with the one you wind up liking the most. In that case, it'd be nothing but downhill from there. But Kirby has so much variety that, even if you're like me and find Superstar Ultra to be the best, it doesn't really matter. And a fun fact, when I find myself in a pickle and I don't really know what kind of Kirby game I feel like playing or even making a video on, I play Superstar Ultra for a little while and I basically go through that same cycle that I've been explaining for the whole video. And even a Kirby fan for life like me finds value here. I can't recommend a better starting game for anybody than Superstar Ultra. Even the Kirby flowchart recommends Superstar Ultra. Everybody recommends this. Unfortunately, there's one barrier stopping Superstar Ultra from being perfect as a recommendation, and that's actually getting it. It's never been re-released, so your only normal way of playing it is by getting a variation of the DS or the 3DS and playing it like that. And I usually avoid the topic of emulation for videos like these, but assuming you have a Nintendo PC and you're cool with playing that way, you still run into issues with how the game runs. Sometimes it's a little too fast, sometimes too slow, and this is definitely a case where I suggest you try actual hardware before trying anything else. Now, to extend the video for a little while, show how good Ultra is as a first game, and just to have a little fun, I also thought, okay, that's good for Kirby's appeal to others, but if you really love Kirby, can that same appeal spread to totally different kinds of games? Like... Fire Emblem? The first thing that came to mind when thinking of a Fire Emblem game to recommend to a newcomer based on their love of Kirby was... Yeah, that's a little bit tougher. While the Kirby community almost unanimously agrees that Superstar Ultra is the way to go for newcomers, Fire Emblem doesn't have the one, quote-unquote. Blazing Blade, or Fire Emblem 7, used to often be cited as the best entry point, and by some people I think it still is, but a few problems arise for fans of something more fast-paced, like Kirby. In particular, the Lin mode tutorial in its entirety really prevents me from suggesting it to, I don't know, anybody, but Kirby fans too. I'm not saying that if you like Kirby, you hate reading, but part of the whole appeal of Kirby is its creativity and refusal of using text tutorials to explain mechanics. And casual or not, the first third or so of the game is just not going to be that great, and it won't pick up for a while. Good for newcomers who don't mind being handheld the whole way, but weird as it might sound, Kirby fans don't really like that. And this is based off my own personal experience of trying to recommend this game to Kirby fans as newcomers. So take for it what you will. I haven't done this for everybody, but still, we're not gonna go with this one. So what would work better? People like Kirby for a lot of reasons. Character design, gameplay, visuals, music, post-game. But what really sells Kirby to a huge crowd is that it's made with beginners in mind, but games will either have a lot of depth to them or some genuine challenge in the post-game that more seasoned video gamers will have something to sink their teeth into. Also, branding, the Kirby brand, that's pretty big too. So ideally, the best game to start out with would be one that isn't very hard, but gradually evolves into a tougher one, while having other elements of Kirby sprinkled into there, while also having recognizable characters. Make said characters fun, have some colorful visuals, with some unsettling creepiness hidden underneath, maybe even some post-game content to keep you coming back. There are options, but for the sake of the video, I am going to stick with one and just mention some others after. As for what we'll be talking about, while I'm sure some of you may be tired of hearing about this one through word of mouth alone, Fire Emblem Awakening would be a great starting point. The story of the game isn't that far off from something you would expect from Kirby, if I'm being honest, if Kirby had a lot more dialogue. It starts out very simple, dare I say kinda comfy, but before long, the darker nature of the game comes to the forefront. Throughout the entire adventure, it never forgets what holds it all together, which is the more hopeful aspect of the story, and in most contexts, I actually would call this a bit too cheesy, basic even, but I think it at least draws some interesting parallels to Kirby that fans of Kirby stories and Kirby lore would really like. On lower difficulties, the game is also not only very easy for somebody to jump into and enjoy, but your units are equally easy to customize. Skills and class changing are everything in Awakening, as any expert would know, but if you like a certain kind of weapon or class or literally whatever, Awakening gives you the absolute freedom to do whatever you want with them. A lot of these skills make the game very easy to break, yeah, but coming from Kirby, where you either pick your favorite ability and try to destroy everything with that, or find fun ways to do the same with a ton of other abilities, Awakening is a baby's game to break. There are a few things here that aren't present in most of the other games either, like a world map, street pass, multiplayer, and rather infamously, marriage, but I don't think any of these are such big deals that going to earlier or later games that don't have them will make them unenjoyable. This isn't a Superstar Ultra case where you might just be starting with the best one. I like Awakening a lot, and a lot of people have it as their favorite, but it isn't all that unanimous. At least not anymore. And yeah, I focus on the more serious aspect of games on this channel, but casually, Awakening has an absolute ton for casual fans to love. The character designs aren't as simple or as cute as Kirby, but they're very appealing, and like Kirby characters, they're all made to complement the story, something that goes underappreciated in regards to Awakening. Any Kirby fan who loves the out-of-nowhere, super cool moments in Kirby will love the critical hit stuff, and of course, like Kirby games, you can totally just stick with your favorites and blow through the game at your own pace. And hey, unlike Superstar Ultra, this one's much easier to get your hands on. The 3DS isn't that old yet, and while you may be able to find the game cheaper online, you can get the game digitally on the 3DS eShop. On top of that, despite the fact that this is an 8-year-old game at this point, it's still very relevant, so you'll be able to talk to hundreds of people online about your favorite characters, your character builds, and yes, even your husbandos and your waifus. Truly, what a time to be alive. If Awakening doesn't tickle your fancy, or you'd like to know where to go next, I think there are a few good other starting points. My own personal recommendation would be Path of Radiance, my favorite Fire Emblem game with an incredible story and very accessible gameplay. but the rarity of it, as well as some mechanics that only appear in this game and its sequel, are why I opted for Awakening instead. Echoes is a great starting point, given you play on normal, with its gorgeous visuals and the combat art system. Just wait to play on hard. I do also have to mention Three Houses as an obviously incredible starting point, but it's much longer than Awakening. Awakening's replayability factor is pretty high, which is huge for many Kirby fans, casual or not. If you don't mind older games, then Mystery of the Emblem is also an incredible starting point, and while I'd suggest that over New Mystery, I could also recommend the DS remake of the first game, Shadow Dragon. While I think Kirby and Fire Emblem have a lot in common, at the end of the day, one is an action platformer and the other is a turn-based strategy game. If you have an inherent distaste for either of these, I can't convince you that either of them will suddenly make you love the genre, but if you've got an open mind, try them out. Who knows, maybe you'll find some new favorite games. Look, Superstar Ultra! Yeah, that game's great. Actually, it's just the best game ever made. Stop playing Fire, stop playing